This stream is live.
Greetings. Yeah, we are live, yes. But, well, sort of. We are now.
From a certain point of view, we are live. We are all live.
We are
not
all
live
live.
in the cosmic universal sense.
That's right. At least the two of us right here, right now,
We are
live.
Relatively live.
There you go. But welcome to the DragonCon Urban Fantasy Track author interview series. And I am joined today by Ben Aaronovitch. And we are going to talk a little bit about the last two books of his that came out. And Ben, it really is nice to see you again. And I'm sorry that you guys are experiencing a little bit of the same kind of weather that we have been here in the States. So I do appreciate you taking
I don't mind it. You get a bit hot, you get a bit cold. People complain about the weather too much, I think.
Well, and the thing is, the weather just is what it is, right? There's not much.
And then they go, oh, we've become detached from nature. Oh, yeah, right now I'm feeling really detached from nature.
You just kind of wish nature would back off just a little.
Yeah, and in the winter, I'm cold. I don't think I'm detached from nature. I just think I have inadequate central heating at the moment. That's what I think.
Right. We haven't learned how to control it yet, the weather itself.
Oh God, no! I don't want them to control the weather. I don't want them to control the weather. I have no idea what mayhem they would cause if they start to control the weather. Can you imagine Elon Musk in charge of the weather? That's if you want a nightmare scenario.
Oh yeah. Wasn't there some Superman movie that dealt with that? One of them did, where that was what the villain wanted to do, was control the weather.
Oh, that was God. This is kind of really nerdy me. This was that was a minor plot point in the third Superman movie, the one with Richard Pryor, whose name I can't remember. And at one point, they use a satellite to control the weather to destroy the Brazil coffee crop so that they can monopolize the coffee production or something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, hopefully nobody that actually has any ability in that area will get, will get.
That's one of my favorite lines by Robert Vaughan, who says, which I think applies to most of these tech bros, which is, he goes, "A wise man once said, I think it was Genghis Khan, it is not enough that I succeed. Everybody else must lose."
That's right. That's actually a good way to look at a villain, I suppose.
Yeah.
Now, for you, as I was saying, the last two books, Masquerades of Spring being a novella, and Stone and Sky, of course, being the next novel in the series. I know that, and you've come out with lots of novellas, which, as one of your readers, I can say that I appreciate, and I'm sure that a lot of other folks do as well. What to you is kind of the biggest difference between writing the two in terms of the satisfaction level and also the challenge? I mean, what are the difficulties?
40,000 words, that's the main difference between a novella. No, that's a glib answer. 45, actually, it's more like 45,000 words. Some stories are novella length and some stories are novel length. Some stories are 5 novel length. Fortunately,
right.
those aren't novels that I write, thank God. So some people, are still writing their last bit of their novel. It's a completely different thing. You just have an idea, and you usually fairly early on know what the length of the actual story is. It's like, when you've got a short story, what's a novella, what's going to be a long short story, or what ungraciously I think SF the Hugo's calls a novelette, which I always find hilarious, but I can never remember whether a novelette is shorter or longer than a novel. And I think there's another category as well, which is kind of like but basically novellas. Novels are over 80,000 words. Novellas are about half that. Short stories go up to about 10 to 20,000 words, in my opinion. That's my opinion for short stories. Your mileage may vary, and that's just I just write the thing, and then you just usually know what length it is. And the great thing about novellas is you're just getting really sick of it, and then it's done.
Oh yeah. And
So
you're like, well, now I know what I can do next, right?
Yeah, with a novel, you're like, oh God, I'm only halfway through. But with a novella, you get to that point, you're like, okay, fine, good, that's done. I can hand that in. Don't have to worry about it.
You're good to go at that. Now, for Masquerades of Spring, which is a novella and a very fun one, I might add, yet with its serious
The most
moments.
fun I've ever had writing, I have to say, that one was.
Oh, really?
Easiest, the fastest, the most fun, the one that had me chuckling at my own wit, which is not a good thing, but there you go, all the way through it. That was Masquerades of Spring. It was just an enormous amount of fun to write. And to answer a question about will there probably be more Gussie stories, yeah, probably, because he was so much fun to write. I think sooner or later we'll have more of those. Not necessarily novellas, but short stories and stuff, I think.
Oh, good. Yeah, he's a very interesting character. Now, what was the impetus for you choosing that time period and the location for the story, or was it all built around the character himself?
Oh, it's one of those kind of logical progressions. I started off. Stephen Fry released about 52 hours of Jeeves and Wooster, right? On him reading them, and I hadn't read them for like 20 years, so like quite a long time ago. And I was listening to them and thinking, oh, and I realized that Gussie actually has not Gussie, Bertie Wooster actually has the same speech pattern as Peter, in that not different slang, different jargon, right? But they both do this thing where they start a sentence and you never know where the sentence is going to end, and then go off on subclauses and say things like, well, what do I know? It's just like, and little metaphors and references and things that they find that just seem to come to them as they're talking. And I thought, wow, I should be able to write a Jeeves pastiche, a Bertie Wooster pastiche. And I thought, ooh. And I had the novellas, and I knew the last novella was going to be a Nightingale novella. So I thought, what am I going to do with Nightingale? And I thought it would be fun to do a young Nightingale. And then I thought I can combine these two ideas. So I'm going to have my Bertie Wooster character, and he's going to interact with my young Nightingale character, and that'll be funny because then of course it's the 1920s, because it's all Bertie Wooster stories are set in the 1920s, even when they're not. So I thought, well, where am I going to set it? Well, basically Bertie Wooster stories take place in three places. They take place in London, they take place in some country house somewhere, or they take place in New York. And I thought, well, I've done a lot of London, I'll do New York. And so I started to do research into New York. And of course, you're talking about New York in the 1920s, you got to talk about the Harlem Renaissance. So I started doing research onto the Harlem Renaissance. And, it is the point where New York really was, right? You can argue about whether New York is the cultural hub of the entire world now. But in 1920s, it bloody was, right? It's just that simple. It was the heart of the beating heart. It was the city. Okay, nobody else came close. Nobody else came close to New York in the city. The Parisians were kind of fading out in the 1890s. London has never really been the world city. It's always been the place where the world goes rather than the world city. But New York was just, and it just had that strut, especially in 1926, 1927, before the Depression, before the world falls out. So I thought, right, I'll do a story set in 1926 because it's all optimistic and happy, and started doing research into, and you've got a lot of contemporary writers, which is another good thing. You have a lot of people who are writing about New York in that period from all over the place, from all sorts of perspectives. And then I found out about the masquerade balls, which I didn't know about. So I found out. And as soon as I thought of that, I thought, right, I'm going to put Nightingale in a dress. That's just going to have to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just has to. Yeah.
That has to happen. So then it becomes, why is Nightingale in a dress at a masquerade ball, right? What's Gussie doing? And then Gussie, and then because we had veered into queer culture at that point, I thought, well, okay, so I'll make Gussie gay, and then you've got right, which is a perfectly feasible thing for. I mean, there's always the joke that Bertie Wooster is as gay as a tree full of monkeys on laughing gas, as Terry Pratchett once said. But it's a subtext because he was writing in the 1930s. But I thought, well, I'll just make it explicit. I'll just have it because it will be funny. And then I just kept on coming up with kind of like funny kind of ideas where he keeps talking about how he walks in two sets of shadows because he's both a gay man, but he's also a wizard. So I walk in the shadows, sometimes down separate sides of the street, and it just like there was just so much fun to be had with it, with the Masquerade, with Nightingale and New York, and I couldn't resist it, and it just sort of, that's why it wrote itself. It was so fast. It just like flew out all the various incidents, and I threw in some definite what's his name? I forgot the name of the story. Famous book. Daisy. Nope.
Oh, the F. Scott Fitzgerald. Yeah.
Yes, Scott Fitzgerald. So you got F. Scott Fitzgerald. Amongst many writers who are writing that pattern, you learn things like it's not digs, it's diggings, and things like that. And you learn the way people talk, and the fact that black people used to refer to white people as Nordics, which I find interesting. Educated, sort of intellectual black guys used to call white guys Nordics, and
which
stuff
is
like
yeah,
that.
I had not heard that in a long time.
No, I hadn't heard that. I hadn't heard that ever until I started reading. People who were, I collected some books. I have a reading list for those who are interested. There's a reading list on my my website for Masquerades of Spring, which gives like lots of books that I found. Not all of them, because that would be quite tedious, but the sort of important ones.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll put a link in the description so people can.
And the same for Stone and Sky as well, so that people can. Because I'm very proud of my research. I like to show my work. Trouble with the writing, so you do research, you want to put it on the page, right? And you can't always put it on the page. So I thought, but I can put it on the website. Hooray!
So you get to show people, look, yeah.
I read all these books.
Well, and in that novella, we do have the younger Nightingale, and then there's this one passage where he's talking to Lucian, and he says, who is Gus's, I don't know, paramour, partner, other half, whatever you want to call him. He had been asking Nightingale about the magical or the cursed instruments or whatever. And Nightingale's comment is, he said, these instruments unbalance the world, and our job is to nudge things back to the natural order. Oh, no, he's not talking to Lucian. I'm sorry. He's talking to that Reverend Edwards.
Yes, yeah, the Reverend Edwards. Yes.
And what that struck me as is that was, pretty much the purpose of what the Folly was all about then. And still remains. I mean, do you think that that's one way that you would describe what the purpose of the Folly is?
Interpretation. Nightingale's very slippery, right? He'll say what he needs to say to get people to do things.
Right.
And he thinks that's an argument that will go down well with the Reverend Edwards. If the Reverend Edwards was like, money orientated, he would have gone on a completely different track to do it, but he knew he was talking to a religious person, so he had to talk about God's order rather than, he has to say, oh yes, God has a natural order, and therefore we have to deal with it. Puts him on the side of the angels, so to speak. Whereas with somebody else, he might have taken a completely different tack. I mean, it is it is an expression of the Folly. Although you could look at that as the ruling class keeping the status quo in their benefit, if you want to take a Marxist analysis of the Folly, which I'm sure a lot of people did.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about it that way. What to you is one characteristic that Thomas and Augustus have most in common, and in what way are they most different from each other?
Oh, well, Gussie will not do any work if he can possibly avoid it. Which, Thomas is like, right, there is a job to do. I shall go out. I shall do it. And Gussie is like very reluctantly dragged out of his comfort. Look, Gussie is in a position to enjoy all the good things in life with none of the penalties, as far as he's concerned, and he has no intention of putting that in jeopardy. But like the original Bertie Wooster, which is a quality that Bertie Wooster has, he's very generous. He's very generous with his friends, and he's very willing to help people, right? Especially his own sort of like group of friends. And so therefore he's always being dragged into situations where he's like, climbing down drain pipes and being assaulted by police officers and things like that, because he has that impulse. And that's what, and they both want to do good. I see if there has something in common, is they both want to do what's right. It's just that Gussie would much rather do it after, a cup of reviving tea in the morning.
Right. He wants to enjoy life first. That's his...
He wants to enjoy life, but he's willing to put himself out occasionally to help people. Whereas Thomas, that he's single-minded. He's just very singly minded. Like he is out there, but he's enjoying it. He enjoys being the man of action. This is before the war. This is before all his friends are killed. It's before the horrors of the concentration camps and everything. So he is just going out there and having a good time, right? He's the man about the world. He's the guy they send out to exotic places to do weird magic things. And he's very broad-minded for his period. Gussie is by nature broad-minded because of his sexuality, but Thomas is just very broad-minded. He's very interested in all sorts of things that most people aren't interested in his profession, and so therefore, but he will do anything for his friends. He will literally lay down his life for his friends, as he does. He basically breaks all the rules. I keep flicking up this bloody control panel. He will break all the rules for Molly. I mean, he will just do it. Molly's upset, so he goes to London. He goes to New York to deal with the situation because Molly is upset. And that's Nightingale. He's just that kind of a guy,
Yeah, he's probably learned over his long life to be able to, the people that he does form strong bonds with, they're very strong. So
yeah, I mean, he forms very, very strong attachments to people, but to few people, but to people. But he's also very loyal to the ideals of his institution as well.
Right.
Right. And
which is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
and he's patriotic as well. I mean, he's like, he's a nationalist in his own way. Which doesn't really come out now, but comes out in World War II, where he's like, he did not have to be drafted. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, right. Well, now when we move on to Stone and Sky, which my lovely copy right here is beautiful. It's a beautiful book. The lovely cover, as they all have been, which I'm sure I know you don't get much. What's that?
Is that the American version?
Yes. This one is.
The American version has 30% more commas.
Oh, really? Okay.
This is the thing I always find really funny. I get the American copy edited version back, and I go, "Why are there 30% more commas?"
That's hilarious. I didn't realize it was quite that extreme.
Americans have more commas.
When I'm over there next month, I'll have to look and pick up a copy in Scotland. That would make the most sense.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads to my next question: is what was it that led you to choosing Scotland as the setting for this particular installment in the series?
I didn't so much choose Scotland as choose Aberdeen. It's very important. The thing is, Scotland is not a like England. Scotland's not a uniform place. The Central Belt is not the Highlands. The islands are not the Highlands. And the Western Isles are not the same as the Eastern Isles. It's like they've all got their own traditions and histories and everything. And Aberdeen is the northeast of Scotland, where they actually speak a dialect that the rest of Scotland doesn't. So what I liked about Aberdeen is they're just as incomprehensible to other Scots as they are to everybody else. And so therefore it's just, but also because everyone, when they write about Scotland, they nearly always either go to Glasgow, Edinburgh, or the Highlands or the islands, you see. And I thought, no, I'm going to go to Aberdeen, this granite city that sits, which is the oil capital of Europe, by the way, still is the oil capital of Europe. That North Sea oil is in decline. And it's just a fascinating place. It's just a fascinating place. And it's also Stuart McBride's fault, who writes these wonderful crime novels set in Aberdeen that made me just go, I must go there. and set crimes in Aberdeen, which is what I do.
There's crime there. Oh, good.
Well, there's crime and there's history. There's crime, history,
Right.
and magic. Well, what else could you want as a writer, apart from the fact that it takes 7.5 hours to get up there by train? So,
Yeah, that is it. We did not make it over quite that far when we were in Scotland last year. So, but now I want to after
it
reading
is
the
very interesting. Don't go in the winter.
no, no. I think as much as
it doesn't have midges. The big thing the east coast of Scotland has over the west coast is there's no midges. Right, in the west coast, anytime as soon as the sun starts to set, you are eaten alive by midges. But on the east coast, no, I don't know why. Someone explained it to me. It's something to do with the prevailing winds and stuff. But just yeah, so
well, we'll have to keep that in mind when we're on the west coast. So, but I'll be back again sometime and visit the east. Now, I know that you were working on this book, on Stone and Sky, long before it appeared for the rest of us. But while you were writing it, how did it feel to be back writing more specifically about Peter and his, and his kind of growing family? Was that did it feel comfortable, or did you miss some of the other people, or how did that feel?
No, it was a lot. I mean, it just felt natural. I wrote the first, like, that opening scene where Brian opens his front door to find he's got like the entire family plus extras kind of piled up in front of his house, and I wrote, I wrote the line. I would like to point out that there was the impact on North Sea oil production was entirely minimal, right? And it's not my fault, and I just loved. I don't know. I really didn't have much idea what we were doing at that point, but it was just a lot of fun. Then I realized I was going to have a second viewpoint, which I didn't normally like to do. I don't normally like to have a second viewpoint character in a book, right? Not because it's first person. It's not an experiment I'm planning to kind of like do a lot. Right. But it is very useful sometimes when you have a very complex story set over like quite a wide geographical area. If you have somebody else to go and stick their nose in, so you basically have Peter doing the city and Abigail doing the countryside. So, but once you have Abigail, then you have to explain what's been going on with Abigail and all the stuff about her brother and everything. And that made an interesting contrast for me. You have Peter who's like got twins. He's well set up, is Peter at the moment, right? And then Abigail who's going through the grief and stuff like that. And that was quite a fun contrast to do. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed doing that. So I like spending time with them. They're my characters.
Right.
Even bloody foxes who annoy me to death.
I know. I swear, if I ever see one in the wild, I'm going to listen really carefully. We have them around here, but don't usually see them.
Oh, there. I know. I happen to know for a fact because I've had to bloody do research on this. That there is. I don't know about Georgia, but they are beginning to infiltrate the suburbs. American suburbs were made for foxes. You couldn't have made a more conducive environment for foxes, raccoons, and coyotes than an American suburb. And so therefore, and they all live together. They all hang out in American suburbs now. The coyotes don't bother the foxes, and the foxes don't bother the coyotes and the raccoons. Mm-hmm. And they all raid your back gardens and eat your small rodents and keep you nice and clear of cockroaches and.
Oh yeah, I'll take one. Yeah, they're welcome to hang around. We have a lot of deer, but
the deer are the other ones. You see the deer, but they're the vegetarians. So
right. So you don't have to worry about them.
I suppose the coyotes go after the deer. In Germany, when I was doing research for the German book, I found the big problem for people who had vineyards up on the slopes of the Moselle were deer who would come in, charge through the vines and rip up the vines and just damage the vines, and little wild boar that had escaped, lived in the forest, and they would come out of the forest and root up the grapes and stuff like that, and that was the big thing. So I like urban wildlife because I'm lazy. Like Gussie, I don't want to really work, so I don't like to go outside the city if I don't have to. So it's good that my wildlife comes to me, as far as I'm concerned.
Now, how do you think that Peter, who, from my perspective anyway, seems to be he seems to take most things in stride uh, fairly easily, considering everything that he's had to learn to deal with over over the whole series so far. But how do you think that he has grown and changed? What to you is the most significant growth or change that he's had over the course of the series?
He's learning to take responsibility.
Mm.
I would say. I mean, in a sense, it's inevitable. He's not going to stay. He's a sergeant now. He's not going to stay a sergeant for long. They're short an inspector at the Folly. They have to have an inspector at the Folly because it's drastically understaffed from a point of view, a policing point of view. They'll make him acting inspector soon, I think. And he has to accept that he is no longer the person that goes out and does stuff. It's going to be other people that go out and do stuff. And in a funny way, this is also Nightingale has to accept he's not going to be the one that goes out and do stuff. And he's accepted that. Peter hasn't accepted that yet. And Nightingale's worried that Peter won't learn the lesson. But the thing is, Nightingale's so bad at kind of conveying anything, really, anything emotional, that he has difficulty explaining to Peter that he has to give it up because he didn't. He was terrible at it. And so therefore, it's like he says in this book, he says, I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't know how to do that. I was just really bad at it.
Well, at least he admits it, right?
Yeah, well, that's, if you're 126 years old, you kind of start to admit these things, I suppose. And Peter's just learning to become, I mean, he's grown up. I mean, basically, he's 30 now. He's got kids. He's making that inevitable adjustment between kind of like late teenagerhood, which is what everyone seems to have in their 20s now, and actual responsibilities. Nightingale would be appalled, right? So as far as he's concerned, you're an adult at the age of 18, right? But not like now. He's appalled at teenagers and adults now who think they're still teenagers when they're 26.
Right, they seem like kids to him.
Yeah, they seem very immature to him. You see, you would be but that's just a time thing. That's just that they were forced to in those days. You didn't have any choice. You had to become an adult because there was no support network for you. So that was it. But yeah, I don't know. What was the question again? I forgot what the question was.
Just about Peter's growth and change.
I don't think about it in those terms. I don't think about my characters in terms of arcs and growths and memes and tropes. I think about my characters. They tell me what they're doing, and then I just write it down. Basically, they seem to grow. Sometimes they don't. Peter's still not particularly good at dealing with trauma, right? And that, he's got this flat effect. It comes from having a junkie father and a mother who had to manage him and Abigail have that in common. They've both been in a situation where other people haven't had enough time for them, where their parents haven't had enough time for them because of various external factors. And in Peter's case, it's because his father is a jazz junkie nut, or was, and his mother had to maintain the father, and so therefore he got less attention than he probably would have. And certain cultural issues as well about African child raising personalities and things like that. And Abigail, because her brother was so ill, and the parents had to spend had to devote so much time to the brother that they didn't have as much time for her as they would have. And that's kind of like, so I've realized that some of my characters tend to have in common. That's my big thing. I don't know if I'm making a statement about my own life. I don't actually remember my life being like that. So, but they have that tendency to suppress their emotions and be very proud of the fact that they suppress their emotions, and that's something that Nightingale, Peter, and Abigail all have in common. I think it's one of the things that makes them good wizards as well, though. You see, that level of ironclad control is something that you need if you're going to be a successful wizard.
Yeah, it gives you a bit of detachment in a way.
Yeah, because you can't be emotional while casting magic. It doesn't work that way. It's not like it's not like the hero gets angry and he's super powerful. It doesn't work like that. I didn't plan it that way. It's just the logic of the way the magic system came out. You see, so you have a magic system that works best if you're detached. If you don't panic, if you don't panic under stress. And that's one of the things Peter also has in common with, and Abigail also have in common with Nightingales. They don't panic. They don't. As soon as they can be very flighty, but when they get into an actual tense situation, they become very streamlined and very capable. And Peter particularly is good at kind of thinking like completely off the left field and coming up with weird improvisations which throw everyone off. And that, you know, I mean, I didn't necessarily sit down, but I didn't sit down and think any of these things. This is just how the characters developed. And you can get away with that. I mean, I'm beginning to notice a certain repetition in some of my characters. So some I've had to drop a couple of characters that you'll never hear about because they were just like that. And I just thought, no, I've already got 3 characters like that. I don't need more characters like that. I need characters that are a bit more human in some ways. A bit more, their reactions are a bit more mainstream.
Well, you mentioned Abigail and the 2 points of view in this novel. You mentioned that earlier, and back in the first interview that I did with you 2 years ago, I had asked you about who some of your favorite recurring characters were to write, and the first one you said, as I recall, the first one was Abigail. And so, you know, it's great that she got to be such a major part of the narrative in this particular book. And, you know, getting those several different chapters told from her perspective. And and I know you just said a little while ago here today that you didn't really ever plan or want to do something like that, but you ended up doing it. Do you think that you would continue to do so?
I might do a split person. I'm not going to do it with Abigail and Peter because she's first person present tense and he's first person past tense, and that bloody drove me completely bonkers. Because I just couldn't remember what bloody tense I was writing in. So Peter started doing present tense and she was doing past tense, and I was going, no. One stage I had to sit down and like write a series of chapters like out of sequence because I just kept on dropping out of the right tense and forgetting. And then Abigail speaks this weird language and I have to bloody go and check on it and get it, look up my notes on teenage speak and stuff like that. And then you can't, you know, you just have that whole process, which is just a pain, really. So I think, you know, I can imagine there's only one other character I can really see having a viewpoint character of. I'm not going to say who that is because that would be a spoiler.
Oh, okay.
But there is another character who is going, I am in the next book, you're going to make me a viewpoint character. I'm like, no, fuck off. And they're going, yeah. You know it's inevitable. You know it has to be done.
You can't seem to escape it, huh?
I don't know. Just the thing is, a story, right? A story has a shape, and as you're writing it, and at the beginning, it doesn't have much of a shape, right? It's like clay. You're sitting there molding your clay, right? But after a while, it takes on a shape, and it starts to harden. And there's a logical way that shape goes. So the shape has to go in a certain direction. If you've ever read a book where you got to the end and it had either a happy or a sad ending, and you felt that didn't really fit the story, that's because the writer really wanted a happy or a sad ending, and that was not the shape the story took. The story will tell you what the ending of the story is, right? I mean, I've been lucky most of my. Well, I've had ironic endings. I don't like miserable endings. I'm a happy-go-lucky kind of guy, but sometimes the stories go in that direction. Sometimes the stories go in a direction and you have to follow the story. You have no choice. And it's the same with characters. Sometimes characters enter into a story and there they are, and you have to either get rid of them or you have to embrace them, but you cannot kind of like marginalize them, because then everyone will be reading that story and they'll be going, but why isn't there more about this person? They won't know that that's what they're thinking, but it'll be this little niggly thing that's going on in the background. Or why aren't we finding out what's going on over there? Sometimes you need someone to be over there. I mean, the great advantage of first person, of course, is that if you don't want to write a scene, you just don't have your character there. So it's like, you missed the dramatic battle, right? Yeah, we won. Hey, great. You don't have to write the bloody battle because your character was late.
Missed their bus or something.
Yeah.
Or they got stuck in traffic. Right?
That has limitations. Sometimes you have to have a second character. You have to have a second viewpoint. because you are doing something. I mean, I'm writing something else which has got a third person because I miss being able to jump between characters. just like, yay, close first person. I'm going to do that because, also that kind of distance you have from the slightly distant. Because sometimes when you're writing first person, it's very inside someone's head.
I can see that, yeah.
It's very distracting, and they always often don't do what you want them to do. With a third person character, it's much easier to bully them into following the plot, I find, anyway.
Kind of a difference between being on the inside or being on the outside looking in, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I like a nice close third person, which means you usually have some access to the emotions of the person you're direct curiosity, but you don't have to have as much because it's not them narrating it. It's not I went into that room, it's they went into the room and they thought, oh no. It's not I went into the room and thought, oh no, because why did they think, oh no?
Right. Why are they upset about this?
Yeah, what is bugging them? And would they tell you? With Peter, the problem is you can't always. He won't always tell you what he's feeling. He just won't tell you because, as far as he's concerned, it's private. And what do you want to know for?
Yeah, if I wanted you to know, I would tell you.
Yeah, if I wanted you to know about my trauma, I would bloody well tell you. But I don't. Thank you very much. And who's telling this story? I am. Get out.
Yeah. Well, speaking of other challenges, how challenging do you find it to kind of have to meld the supernatural elements of the world with the more mundane parts of the world and the investigative techniques, I guess?
I don't find that a challenge. I find that fun.
Okay.
One of the reasons why I go for the most realistic sort of policing background that I can is because it's tremendous fun to take real life policing, like real life proper policing, like not in the television sense real life policing, but proper real TV, non-TV policing, and then slam the supernatural into it for fun and shits and giggles, as they say over here, right? And that for me is fun. I don't find it in trouble. I find that enjoyable. I don't write a book like Gussie. I'm not writing this book to make my life difficult,
Right. No, I'm sure.
My enjoyment. I love writing these books. I love writing these characters. I enjoy doing it. It can get hard work sometimes, in the same way that I imagine a marathon is quite hard work. I mean, I wouldn't know. I haven't gone anywhere near a race over about 2,000 meters since I was 15. But I'm sure you see people running a marathon, they're not enjoying it halfway through. You can't tell me they're having a good time, right? But
I agree.
They get something out of it, right? And it's the same. They have determined to do this thing. In my case, it's write 96,000 words, right? And in their case, it's run a ridiculous number of kilometers. I don't know why. I mean, did they not notice that the guy died at the end of the race, right? The original marathon guy, whatever the Greek guy was, he runs back and then he says, "We won," drops dead. I mean, that not a message about running that distance?
Yeah, you'd think it would be a cautionary tale rather than a call to arms.
Don't run 26 miles, right? It's a long way.
Yes, especially probably in Greece. They've been having a lot of hot weather too.
Yeah, but I mean, you get these people. But I mean, the thing is that so it's not work. It's work in the same way that running a marathon is work. If you like running marathons, okay. So it's something you want to do. It's something you find fun, right? Ultimately, you find some satisfaction in it and enjoyment in it. And sometimes it's a little bit hard work, but most of the time, it's not. It's not. It's the most fun you can have, sitting down in front of a computer that's not playing a computer game, really.
Oh, well, there you go. Now, would you say that the series itself has followed the path that you kind of envisioned when you first conceived of the idea, when the idea came to you, or has it taken many paths you didn't expect?
I didn't have a path. I modeled it on the classic detective story series, where you have a detective. Each book you have a crime, and then they solve the crime. Hooray! Right? Poirot doesn't change. Morse doesn't change. The 87 boys at the 87th precinct are the same at the beginning and at the end. Unlikely 200-year span or whatever they did spend in the 87 precincts. People don't change. People don't change. The detective's role is not to change, right? I mean, Peter breaks that a little bit, but they can get married and have kids and things, but then their role is to create change in other people, not to change themselves. This is the mistake a lot of television executives get when they get hold of TV products, is that they keep trying to make the main character, the detective character, they keep trying to give them an arc. The detective does not have an arc. The job of the detective is to be the cause of arcs in other people. And it's like Columbo. Columbo is the same at the beginning as he is at the end. Morse is the same at the beginning as he is at the end. These characters are the same again. So Peter will never be anything other than Peter Grant.
Well, I think
he may have a higher rank and more children, but he's not going to be anything other than Peter Grant, right? And he's, that's just because that's not his role in the story. The role of this Peter in the story is to go and find shit out and stick his nose in where it doesn't belong. And that's why it's always a murder. That's why in these crime stories it's always a murder, because like embezzlement doesn't give you the same kind of level of moral authority. A murder gives you the absolute moral authority as a detective to go in and mess up other people's lives, because you say it is a murder. It is the most heinous thing that can happen. I am going to go in and I am going to use that moral authority to dig into your life, whether you want me to or not. And I'm going to unearth all your secrets. I'm going to spread them out for all the world to see. And that is what the detective does in a detective story. That's the role of the detective. It doesn't matter if it's Philip Marlowe or Agatha, Mrs. Marple. It's the same role. It's the same role. And that's their role. Their role is to create change in other characters and to expose other characters and expose society in a lot of cases, or iniquities and hypocrisies and all that sort of thing. And that's what they're for. And so therefore, in some ways, you don't have a story. It's not like A Song of Ice and Fire. At no point are, icy Picts going to come racing over the Hadrian's Wall heading for London. It's just not going to happen. Oh. And it won't work anyway, because Peter would use a flamethrower.
That's right. He could take care of it really quickly.
Yeah, and also it would have taken about 5 minutes to come up with obsidian bullets, and that would be it, really.
Yeah, that's all. That's about it. Now, you mentioned other detective story. Are there any current detective novels, stories, or even television shows that you particularly enjoy, that you find to be great examples of a genre?
I really like the one set in the White House they did recently. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. I can't remember what it was called, but it was really fun. I enjoyed that. I like the Knives Out films a lot.
Oh yeah.
I actually have that quote where he says his technique is to wait until he sees where the trajectory of the truth will go and then sidle over with no rush. Wait there until the truth lands in his hands, right? I've got that written on my wall because I like it so much. I like the stories that brought me to Aberdeen, which is Stuart McBride.
Joe McBride. I was going to ask you who that was.
Stuart McBride. McBride. Stuart, as in the clan Stuart.
Okay.
And he has a series set in Aberdeen and also a made-up city in Scotland. And basically, he has invented the two best detectives that ever lived. And I found out this recently because it's actually something that he put in his last book, and I'm afraid it is the last McCrae and Steele book, which is a pity because I really love those two characters. Where he said that he'd watched all this television program where you had like quirky, eccentric detectives surrounded by normal police officers solving crimes. So he decided to do a story about a normal, straight detective who's surrounded by mad, eccentric cops. And that's basically and as soon as he said that, I thought, oh my God, that's exactly what he wrote. That's exactly what happened. So all these bizarre detective inspectors and sergeants and characters that were populated suddenly made complete sense, including DI, later DS, Roberta Steele, who is just the most fantastic and one of my favorite characters of all time. So that's a favorite of mine. Then I like, I like the classics. I like your Marples and and things like that. So in terms of crime, but I like a good police procedural. So I like Unforgotten. I
Oh
like
yeah,
that one because
yeah.
that's very that procedure was very done. Happy Valley, which is very, very realistic in terms of its portrayal of policing and stuff. I liked all that kind of stuff. So that's the sort of stuff I like.
Well, speaking of Scotland, my husband and I got very, uh, very involved with Shetland, and really, yeah, just love that. Love that
Inexplicably
series.
high murder rate of Shetland.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say a lot of bad stuff happens, and then more recently, the one that's set in York, Patience. Uh, that one we've watched and have enjoyed. So it's always nice to get those settings. Well, now finally, for my last question, are you able to tell us what it is you're working on currently, or is it a big secret?
Well, surprise, surprise! It's a Peter Grant book.
Surprise.
Shockingly, it's a Peter Grant book. Amazing.
Okay, well,
well, yes, I'm working on a book that's going to be set during lockdown.
oh, okay.
We get to 2020 and we start off in January, and then by March there's lockdown and well, I don't need to tell you what happened. You were there, and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds.
I mean, I don't actually know what happens in the second half of the book yet, so it's like, stuff's going to happen. There's stuff, lots of stuff. There's going to be a viewpoint character. There is going to be a second viewpoint character. I swore I wasn't going to do it, and then immediately did it. But it's not going to be Abigail. It's going to be another viewpoint character. This is going to concentrate a bit more on the history of the actual folly. And political shenanigans and sort of like the forces that have become building, which I've hinted at, and the forces that are building up to try and take the folly down. And you know, all the people they've pissed off basically in the last 6 books. So
Well,
yeah, I don't know the details yet. I know. I mean, I've got like a first 2 chapters, so I know what happens in the first 2 chapters. And I know basically where everyone's ranked up now, so I know where they all are and what they're doing, and I know roughly what's going to happen. But I'll be as interested as you are to find out what happens at the end.
It's as soon as they tell you, it'll be on the paper.
Yeah, as soon as my characters tell you what the stunning hell they're doing, I'll let you know.
Well, that sounds fabulous, Ben. Thank you so much for taking this time to speak with me today. I know you only had a little bit of a break. I looked at your calendar and said, okay, let's try to find a time where he might have a few days off at least.
I'm going to Oxley on Thursday and Staines. I love the name Staines. I'm going to Staines. Or is it Redditch? Going somewhere anyway on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, you're a busy guy right now, and we really do appreciate.
Well, I do like the money, and so therefore, if you like the money, you have to go out and sell the bloody books.
That's true. That's true. It does help when it comes to trying to, live and everything, doesn't it?
Amazingly, strangely, you need the money. I wish to become accustomed to.
There is a connection there between those things. But and I also want to mention to you to thank you, and to also to our viewers that this is actually video number 99 on the Track YouTube channel. Some of them are multi-person panels over topics or over specific media properries, but and then there are a lot of author interviews. But you're number 99, so thank you very much. And we appreciate you taking the time. And one of these days, when I am visiting your wonderful country, I hope I get to end up at one of your.
You can come around and we'll go out and have coffee. I'll find somewhere scenic for you to have
coffee.
Oh,
okay. I'll
go and have coffee in Russell Square. We'll go and have, if it's a nice day, we'll go and have coffee in the cafe in Russell Square.
All right. Well, that sounds lovely.
That's nice and central, easy to find. Can't get lost looking for it. It'll be nice.
Well, thank you very much. That would be lovely. I would appreciate it. and it would be nice to actually meet you in person. You've been so kind to do these interviews with me, and I know that all of your fans that at DragonCon appreciate it as well. So thank you very much. Thank you to anyone who ends up watching this video.
Hello,
and we'll see you later. Thanks very much, all.
Thank you. Yeah, it's still live.